systems nominal.
Ladies and gentlemen, my fellow mech heads and Mac heads, not the Mac computer heads, the proper Mac heads. Today on the show, we are joined by Mr. Drew Edney of Australia and Slave2Gaming. As you can imagine, he is also a very big Mac head. He is responsible for the official license Maschinen Krieger 15mm miniatures line, among other great things on his website, Slave2Gaming, which I'm bringing up right here because, man, you've got a lot of stuff on that. He is also currently in developing the 15mm miniature war game to go with these. So we're going to have a whole bunch of stuff to talk about. Welcome to the show.
G'day, how you going?
Going good. It's currently opposite day in terms of the time
Yes.
where you are.
Yes.
You're just getting up. I'm going to be going to bed at some point.
Yes, yep. Yeah, look, it's actually looking like quite a nice day outside. So, yeah, maybe some outside stuff, but it's winter here, so slightly different than you guys.
Well,
But
you
yeah,
know, we had a pretty good day too, so we have that in common. I had a massive rainstorm just a couple of days ago. The driveway was a
sure. Yep.
puddle.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, thank you for having me on. Yeah, this is great.
Well, thank
Where would you
you,
like to
because
start?
actually, where did I put that little guy? Where did I put him? Ah, he's over there. For those who can't see it right now, we have here a HAFS Super Jerry from the Independent Mercenary Army, assembled and
Yes.
painted by yours truly, provided to me by
Beautiful.
this guy right there.
Yep.
Also got a
Yeah.
squad of 6 Melusine powered armors,
Yep.
which is also
Some of my
really
favorite
good.
figures, those guys.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, well I mean they're iconic, those ones, right? I mean in terms of like the
Yeah.
powered armor, you're either dealing with the AFS or the Super AFS from the mercenary side, but let's face
Yep.
it, the one man panzers, have got some panache to them. Let's face facts.
Yes. Yeah. Everyone loves the enemy. Everyone loves the bad guy. So yeah, I
Yeah.
understand that. That's yeah.
Well, that's one thing we could talk about because that's one of the interesting things about Machine Kriegers that the bad guys are debatable in this
Yep.
case, since. But
Yes, exactly.
but how
Definitely.
did you get involved with this particular setting?
All right, so we'll take a step back to the 80s where I got into role playing. That was
Mm,
my huge start into the descent into nerddom, I guess. As I like to put it.
yeah.
Moved into wargaming not long after I got married, just as a thing to do at home with just painting miniatures with my wife.
Hmm.
From there, bought into almost every game that died. So your Clan Wars, your Warzone, all these once big games that have disappeared.
Mm.
Um, and then over time, I made a friend, guy called Michael Broadbent. He was a sculptor, caster, designer, all that sort of stuff. And we just gamed for a lot of years. We moved into the Slave to Gaming business about 10 years ago now.
Hmm.
And basically, from there, through that, we started obviously selling miniatures. Michael had a love for Mac from the 80s when it first came out. He was running a hobby store in the UK.
Hmm.
And basically, he bought everything and then it would sit on his shelf. He never made it. He was one of
Oh,
those sort of guys that collected lots of stuff. Um, from we then he introduced me to the board game, and we said, why not make some miniatures for ourselves to play? So it started as that basically, make the figures, have a play.
which is
Um,
kind of how Mac started too. It's the whole DIY thing.
yes, exactly. Just build and bash and yeah. Um, about 5 or 6, maybe let's say 7 years ago, I made some contacts, made some inroads into talking with Sensei Yokoyama,
Hmm.
and basically got approval to start making this and selling it. And from there, we've just slowly grown over time. We've had a couple of different designers come and go, and we're in a situation now. Michael passed away last year, and
Mm.
I've basically taken over full control of what we're doing now. So yeah, that's sort of where we got to this point right now.
Yeah. So I
Um,
imagine like being in Australia, one part of the setting takes place there, but also the fact that you're this
yes, yes,
close to Japan probably has an impact on the availability of all this stuff, going back all the way to the 80s. Because here on the other
yeah.
side of
Well,
the
it's
Atlantic, that was a hell of a lot more complicated.
yes, yes. Well, look, we've also got what should I call him? Sensei Lincoln Wright,
Yes, from Paint
the
on Plastic.
yes, who lives in Australia, and he promotes it in a huge way over here as well.
Hmm.
So you've Australia is sort of becoming the almost the hub of Mac at the moment. There's a lot of Mac stuff going on, lots of game playing, lots of model kit building, lots of sales. It's quite exciting at the moment. Um, the Japan thing, we're still about 10 hours behind or 10 hours away. So it's still a long trip. We
Hmm.
went there in 93. Oh, sorry, 2023, sorry. And yeah, it still feels like a long way away.
I can
It's still a
imagine,
very
yeah.
different world. Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably a bit
Um,
close. It's still a bit closer than Canada, but still, Commonwealth representing.
yeah, yes. Exactly,
Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
admittedly, it didn't take too long for those miniatures to arrive at my place too. Plus, the fact that the Canadian and Australian dollars have near parity
Yeah.
kind of helps with regards to that too. So,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly. We've noticed from our point of view that sales have obviously dropped off with a lot of the talk of tariffs and stuff like that, and people have become very cautious. But you just got to either keep going or you say, well, it's time to stop, and we're not at that point now. We're
yeah,
a
yeah. I
long
mean,
way
we
away from
do
that. There's
most of
too
our
much to do.
yeah for our home business here. We do most of our sales to the U.S. anyway, so gotta bear, grin and bear
Yeah.
with it when it comes to that kind of stuff. Although
Yep.
we do have a
I
couple of
think I've
clients
lost you.
in Australia as well. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yep.
So
Okay. Awesome.
yeah. So talk me through this. What is it about Machine Krieger that really attracted your attention to it? Beyond the fact that your friend and former business partner was, very much involved with
Yeah.
this. What is the
Yep.
thing that you enjoy
All
about
right.
it?
All right. Well, so I I love the fact that it was. I like retro, so I love the '80s stuff. I'm a hair metal fan. I like the role playing games from the '80s and the board games from the '80s, and that sort of feel of Mac very much felt that way. It
Mm,
wasn't the super tight body suits that you see in Power Armor nowadays. It's big chunky suits
yeah,
and
yeah,
very different from um, what we have now, what we think of now as modern and high tech.
yeah. Especially
Um,
in terms of power and what people think of from the likes of Iron Man or Halo or something like that.
yes, yes, exactly, yes. Um, so that side of it, I think I got pulled along with it a lot with Mike's love of it. So he actually started off by getting the 3D designs made and putting it out on the table. It was like, wow, this looks amazing. What can we
Hmm.
do with this? And like I said, we played it for a couple of years just using the board game rules. Um, had a ball doing that. And it was simply that we were able to move into something else with it. Um, and I think from the discussions, I think that Cal was very excited that somebody that was in Australia was doing it because that was his setting. That was where he wanted it to be.
Hmm.
Um, and
Did he
yeah, it
say
was just
why
it
he
just sort of
picked Australia as like one of the major centers of the setting?
no. The whole conversation of getting licensed took um, maybe 2 years. Um, things tend to go very slowly with discussions in that way. So we'd send out information, we'd wait a couple of months, and then we'd hear something back. And we were sort of expecting that anyway.
Hmm.
He's obviously a busy man. The guys we're interpreting through as well, they're busy. So it became just ask the questions you have to ask.
Yeah, I imagine there's
Um,
many layers of, stuff you have to get
yeah,
through. If not only is there legal stuff and, commercial stuff, but then there's all this stuff that
Yes.
has to be translated too back and forth.
Yes.
Yeah, that can add some extra
Exactly.
complications to things.
Exactly. Uh, yeah. Yeah. So look, it's from my point of view, it was very much um, I love how these figures just look
Mm.
very different. A Gustav suit to me is just the coolest looking suit because it's this big huge thing that it's not like a helmet and
Yeah, it's practically a vehicle
it's
in and of itself.
yes exactly and that's what grabbed me. These were very different from traditional power armor.
Hmm.
So yeah, that sort of grew on me, and then you move into the larger the walkers, the vehicles, and even the hover vehicles are different from how we look at sci-fi hover vehicles quite often. Our
Yeah,
When you look at miniatures and wargaming hover vehicles, BattleTech and um, other games like that, they have very similar looking tanks to modern day tanks. An Abrams battle tank could quite easily be a hover tank if it had all the cells underneath it, looking at the figures. Whereas a Nutcracker looks so totally different
yeah, it's a
to
unique silhouette
any
to it.
tank out there at the moment.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Um,
because most tanks
and
these days, pretty much, they've all decided, okay, we're gonna go with what's the most efficient. We're gonna go with like sloped armor, reactive armor, and stuff
yes,
like that. So they all end up kind of looking the same, versus like those early
yes,
tanks that you had from World War II
yeah,
and First World War, where people are still experimenting with stuff. They haven't really figured out what was good.
yes,
So go from there. And now you have this.
exactly.
Yeah, because Ko Yokoyama isn't an engineer or anything like that. He's an artist. So naturally, these things have as much
Yes,
to do with the aesthetic rather than just how it works, but they still look like they would work.
yes, exactly. And not only that, these grew from World War II kits,
Hmm.
because they were kit built, they were just bashed together with parts, and we'll use this Tamiya kit to make this, and this Nito kit to make this.
Yeah, throwing some ping pong balls and you're golden.
They sort of formed totally unique things, but yeah, still yeah, very similar to World War II stuff. So
Hmm.
it's nice that it sort of pulls that in, and that grabbed me as well. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
uh,
I remember when I first saw Koyakuyama's artwork and the models and stuff like
yeah.
that. I was looking at for stuff from a game called Silent Storm. If you ever played that one, it's a PC
I've heard of
strategy
it. I
game.
haven't played it. Yes.
PC strategy
Yep.
game, World War II, and it involves these powered armor suits called Panzerkleins, which they do look very much inspired by
Yep.
the ASFs and the PKAs. You can look at the like you really look at the Allied and the Axis
Yes.
versions of it, and yeah, okay, somebody that's a model gets handy when they were inventing this stuff. The guys over at Nival in Russia
Yes.
who made these, and it's like, okay, I'm searching for like, okay, is there anything cool done with these Panzer clients or something like that? To look, looking at pictures on Google Images, and I'm seeing this, and I'm looking at it like, okay, here's someone did a painting. Wait, that's not it. Ooh, what's this? Oh,
Yes.
SF3D. Okay, let's look up some more. Oh, there's a board game. Oh, someone did a fan site with all the stats and all the vehicles, including a bunch of fan made ones. Okay, I'm into this.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
the
Yes.
SF3D
Exactly.
gaming website that FookFactor.com, that one
Yes.
is the one that I first came across that really got told me like, okay, there's a lot more to this.
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
Mm.
Um, uh, it's funny you actually say the SF3D. I a while back ago, I was actually watching one of Lincoln's videos, and it talked about we always refer to it as SF3D,
Hmm.
but it's a bit of a play on words for the Japanese because SF obviously science fiction,
Hmm.
but the three is actually um, pronounced as sun, so that's the third number, Ishni
Sun
sun.
D
Yeah,
Sunday.
and D is quite often pronounced as day. Yes, so Sunday. So it's like a get together thing you did on the weekend and just had a day of kit bashing, and I love that
Hmm.
that idea that this is just a a fun thing that you do
Yeah.
on your weekend, your time off. And that what you're talking about there, seeing the pictures and seeing the art that he does, um, really turns it into something that is fun. It's not uh, there's no color scheme that you have to follow. There's no, it's not ultramarines blue or something else like that that has to be a certain thing. This is your hobby. You make it how you want it,
Yeah, I
and you
mean,
paint it.
neither side of the war even has a flag at the moment. No one's actually bothered to make one for either officially or unofficially
Yes,
for both
exactly,
sides. Yeah, it's basically the thing
exactly.
that
Yes,
differentiates them is basically like,
we actually
these are
had
the
this
vehicles
properly.
and this is their aesthetic, and that's pretty much it. And that's,
Yes,
which is interesting in and of
exactly.
itself because oftentimes for anything related to miniatures like this, whether it's Warhammer or any kind of BattleTech, heavy gear, any of
Yes,
these kinds of things where you have a miniatures, not necessarily even a miniatures game, but you have these kind of models and miniatures, and with it you have a setting and a particular storyline, and narrative. It's usually a
yes,
bit more set down at this point. I mean,
yep,
30, 40 years in. But here, things are still up in the air in many
yes,
places. Like there's whole sections of this universe that are completely unexplored because they're just, they just didn't bother with it because it wasn't
exactly.
necessary. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And the background very much grew from this idea of let's just make these figures and then
Mhm.
we'll make a setting to suit them.
Yeah. Which
And
is all the more
I
surprising.
find that,
Yeah. Which is all
yeah,
the more
uh,
surprising because it actually makes a great deal of sense looking at it once it's organized into a
lost
coherent
you.
timeline. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, our problem has become very much writing this game. Gamers want background. They want
Hmm.
to know like you say, the flags, the logos, the everything for their army.
Hmm.
Put logos on here, put this on here, and there's so much that's not out there.
Yeah.
There's a great website by a guy called Maschinen Krieger, and he's done an amazing history. Same as the other one, the Foosh site you were talking about. They're great for information, but it's still so limited.
Hmm.
And
It's very focused on the
how do you write
vehicles
it?
themselves. Yeah.
Yes,
Since
exactly.
that's
How
what
do
we
you write
have, right?
a yeah? There's no background to give to people,
Yeah.
so
I
you
mean,
you give them what you can, but it's very limited.
yeah, I mean, the closest we've got in terms of like background stuff is like books like these that have come out
Yes,
since
yes,
Kagekama got the full rights back in the late '90s, early 2000s. Where
yes,
a book like this has, for instance, the full like the kind of battalion divisions and stuff like that. For in this case, no, it's all in Japanese. I have no idea what's being
yes.
said. I think this is the I'm seeing nutcrackers and Panza and Croats so on and
Yes,
Neuspielers. So I'm assuming this is the SDR here and their
yes,
stuff. But
yes,
yeah, you can
yeah,
see the kind of like troop divisions and how they're organized and stuff like that. But even then,
yes,
obviously,
exactly.
there's some blank spots because it mentions like transport trucks and support vehicles that were never modeled. So you gotta just make stuff
Yes,
up as you go along,
exactly.
which you've done
And
quite a bit of. I see you recently put out a
exactly. And
line
this,
of the Goliath trucks.
sorry, I've lost you.
You got me? Yeah, connection's not exactly
Yes,
stable, but I
yes,
think
yep,
we're so
yep.
far we're so good.
That's all right.
I'm talking to a guy halfway on the other side of the planet. Cut me some slack here.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
The
It's only
internet is
what,
doing
14
its
hours behind or
best.
something?
Yeah, the internet's doing its
Exactly.
best right now. But
Yeah,
in any
exactly.
case, yeah, you recently came out. If I look at your website here, Machine Krieger in 50 millimeter non-army specific units. Yeah, you had a whole series, not just of single trucks and stuff like that, but the fact of the matter is that they have multiple different variations as well. So yeah, you get supply trucks, transport, command, missile
Yes.
anti-air, heavy and light anti-air for the full DACA
Yep.
version. I mean, that is, one, it's always nice to have
Yep.
that kind of stuff, and two, it makes sense because they're basically like towed,
Yes.
tow trucks, so they just carry whatever the hell they want.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The so the what we've had to do with making the miniatures and the game is break it into so we do all the official figures, we do
Mhm.
your SAFs and we do all those specific units. But then we've had to take a little bit of license and say, well, you would have a support unit for a SAF unit. So they'd have a rather than just having a standard laser on an arm, they'd have a special laser. They have a special unit. But then there's other figures like the trucks, like the Goliaths and all that sort of stuff that are never mentioned in any of the settings.
Hmm.
There's no mention in any of the background that I've seen so far about infantry and how infantry fights. But you should have them in an army. So
Yeah.
we've made these, but they're not official Maschinen Krieger Mac 15 figures, so that we sell them through our sci-fi range. But our rules basically say, use these figures if you want, or use whatever you like.
Yeah.
Um,
And you've also you've got a range of what was it called for sci-fi 15 millimeter here. You've got a range
yes,
of yeah, infantry here for a particular, what was it called? It was in the new stuff.
yep,
It what was it here? It's yeah, new stuff. Click on that. Desert Group Infantry. Because yeah, World War 2141 is the new range of stuff that you've been making. You did a Desert Australia Corps, entire future World War II of your own here. It
yes, yep,
looks perfectly compatible with what you expect for Mac 2. So even if you don't go in for
yes,
that, you can still
exactly.
use it for
Well,
this.
yes. Well, there's an interesting thing that we're discussing at the moment with Sensei Yokoyama,
Hmm.
the idea of moving into 28 mil Mac.
Ooh,
So this is something that you're hearing first about officially. It's still in the discussion. We're putting together some ideas of what we want to release and how we want to do it. Um, Once we get that all sorted out and we get the license official, then we're going to go down the 28 mil range. So we've released our infantry, I guess,
mhm.
for this World War One 2141 range, just as a rather than calling it the sci-fi and 28 mil this time, we've given it sort of a very basic setting, and these will be compatible with your 28 mil suits. So yeah, that's sort of the idea we're thinking in the future. Um,
Nice.
there has been talk about a like a 6 mil, 8 mil epic scale tank only game.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that's all in the works.
So like
We'll
six
see where
millimeter
where it all
scale nut
leads.
rockers and doll houses just going at it.
Yes, yeah.
Cool.
They work out about an inch long.
Hmm.
So yeah, you have say a unit of three or something like that, and yeah, you'd play companies of tanks rather than individual suits. So
Yeah,
yeah,
cool.
changing the sort of dynamics of what we're doing with Mac. Yeah.
Yeah. What kind
So
of when you're
yeah,
doing like
that
yeah.
the
No, go ahead. Go ahead, sir.
sorry, you go.
Okay. Well,
I was just going to say that the basically sorry,
the
I'll
joys
stop.
of
Wait.
of intercontinental time delays. Go ahead.
Okay. Um, Basically, what we've been doing is we've been making our infantry recently in from 3D files. The idea being that we can obviously scale up, and that's where hopefully the 15 mil and the 28 mil will all gel together at some point in the future.
Mm.
You'll have the 28 mil suits and the 28 mil infantry, and yeah, even some of the vehicles that we're designing at the moment. We've basically taken an Australian-made Sentinel tank and we've turned it into a hover tank
Nice.
so that it's something slightly different and useful in a science fiction setting. So that's still focused on the 15 mil, but we'll grow into the 28 mil stuff as we go.
Yeah. What
But
are
yeah,
the advantages of 28 millimeter over 15 millimeter for wargaming?
well, there's a huge market for the 28 mil, obviously.
Hmm.
That's where the 40K players, the bolt action, all
Mm.
these
Yeah.
these other players play at. Um, for us, what we see it as is we actually want to look at something more like I don't know if you've ever heard of a game called Mordheim.
Mm. Heard
Um,
of it? Yeah.
you're basically a skirmish game where you play units of 6 to 12 figures, and it's basically go, whether it's hunting or whether it's on recon missions or something like that, and you play out games where as you get hurt, you gain wounds, but you also gain experience, and your warband changes and becomes more experienced.
Yeah, it's like the Warhammer Fantasy
So
version of
that's sort of
Necromunda.
it gives us the ability at 28 mil. Yes, yes, exactly, exactly. Necromunda is very similar.
Hmm.
It gives us the option to um, expand in size, but also into something very different for the players that want that. If players want to use it for a large scale game like a 40K size game, well, they can do that too. But yeah,
Yeah, just
that's
got to
sort of
make
the
sure you got
theory.
enough table size for that.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose that's one of the
Um,
advantages
so
that.
yeah, look, at the moment it's just slowly work towards all these different plans. Uh,
Mm. I suppose that's one of the advantages games like the old SF3D war game had in terms of like their size, the whole hex space with little chits and stuff like
yep,
that. It makes it
yes,
that's one of the things I've noticed between miniature gaming
yes, yep,
and the old Avalon Hill style war game is that oftentimes those ones tended to be more on the,
yes,
I guess what would now be the 6 millimeter scale, but done with little chits and a piece of cardboard, and it was just
yes,
easier to put on a table at that
yes,
scale for that.
yep,
Although you could then scale up and down as needed.
yes. Yes, yeah, exactly. So this is that's the game that you're talking about when you talk about
Oh yeah, that's a
um,
beautiful thing
the
there.
board game. I've got both of the versions, and they're great fun to play.
Mm,
If you're into that type of game, the chip board game is very different way of thinking because it's hex based and all that sort of stuff.
mhm.
But yeah, they're good value. They're good fun.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, a lot of the war games that I enjoy
the
happen in
idea
space too.
of
So
those ones I always find. Yes, yes. I tend to find that the only issue with the board games that size is that um, one chip basically covers a nutcracker, covers a infantry, covers all the different sizes of vehicles.
mhm.
So it limits what you actually see as a for scale. Everything's the same size. So that's the only issue I ever have with it. But realistically, you're looking at a board, so it doesn't really matter. It's a bit of fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an abstraction ultimately.
But yes, exactly,
Mm.
exactly. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So look, the plan is to continue forward with various different ideas for Mac. Um, Try and cover what other players are looking for, not just how can we pump out more of this stuff and just try and sell product.
Yeah. No, well,
Um,
definitely that's
and it's
important
kind of hard
because
as a retailer to do that because yeah, um, you've got to do something where you're making some money to make the next product, but yeah, you've got to also do the what does the customer want?
yeah, because if you can make all the product you want, but if no one's interested, well, you just wasted your time and money doing it. So you do have to figure out, okay,
Exactly,
what do my
exactly.
customers want, and do I want to make something for that market?
Yes, exactly, exactly. And we've got a lot of that we do. We do make the effort to try and um, design those things. We've actually got new support units coming out for their flamer units.
Ooh.
Something that is not even spoken about in the Mac universe. But like I said, once again, we've taken that leap because um, a, a sapper unit or an engineer unit would have something like that. They're an advanced deployment unit. They're a unit that would have something to. So we've got things like that we've listened to customers and they've said, well, what about this? What about that? And so we've built this game on what the public is actually saying. Um,
Mhm.
we run it all through a Facebook page. And every time I put it out there, I almost cringe because I know that I'm going to get hammered for the next couple of days with oh, you spelt this wrong, you said this wrong, the grammar's wrong here, or whatever, and that's great because that actually means that the public is interested in what we're doing. Um, so yeah,
Yeah, better it happening then than once you put it on sale and then everybody comes at you with any kind of errors you might have made. So it's a good thing to get that stuff ironed out quick.
yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. And you've
Yeah,
already got
yeah.
a
We
significant
we've also
rule
got
set here. Like you've already got a significant rule set already for the
yes,
ground-based stuff. You also do for the aerial assault rules, which are definitely more involved than the ones for the original board game. That one was basically just very abstracted. Here it's far more interesting. You got height bands, speed cover, everything that you need for all this stuff. You can do a full Maschinen Krieger
yep.
dogfighting game if you feel like it.
Yes, yes, exactly. Um, that's still very much a work in progress.
Hmm.
I really want to say that the whole concept of the game was when we originally started was we wanted a 5-page set of rules that basically covered something simple and people could just go nuts with. Most gamers realize that a 5-page set of rules never ends up being that way, and so it expanded into what it is now.
Yeah.
But the air I'm still not 100% happy with. I want to, I don't know, mix it, play with it, simplify it. So that's still something we're doing in the background.
Hmm.
Talking a lot about how we do that, what we chop out, what we add in, what we change.
Yeah.
So yeah, um, and to a certain degree, well, at the moment it's just their support units. But what if people want to play a full air on air based game? Let's make that available too.
Yeah. And what happens when people start bringing orbital combat into it at the same time? Because the thing about Machine Krieger is that it's not just on ground. There's also a whole bunch of stuff
Exactly.
happening in orbit and on the moon as well.
Yes, exactly. Well, the whole lunar setting we're talking about for a supplement in the future. We've made lots of the lunar units that you can use on in our current version, the ground assault.
Hmm.
Um, but the idea is that, well, um, let's not take on too much of a job and say do ground, air, and lunar at once and get them all wrong. Let's focus on getting the main rules right, and then a supplement where you can then use these other lunar units is a good way to expand and continue to help the game grow in different directions.
Hmm.
So that's planned for sometime in the future.
Yeah. Speaking of expansion, one thing that's I didn't get into it very much in the video that I did on Machine and Krieger previously, but the fact that the setting kind of ends by 2887 with some shenanigans happening in space with a certain AI system called Pluto coming online from IMA fuck
Yes,
up. Is there any plans of expanding in
yes.
that direction and creating essentially the follow-up to Machine and Krieger and making it playable?
There, there is. I would love to go further with that. We've got obviously we've got some of the the knights already in the game.
Hmm.
We've got the a fireball gigantus coming,
Yeah.
so a larger, much larger walker. Um, the problem still comes in that well, there's two problems really. There's the Mac purists that say Machina Krieger is this world only, and it goes from here to here.
Hmm.
But then there's also um, the MK44 license in itself is, I think it's sort of owned by a number of people, and there's a number of different
Hmm.
people that work on that. So that's obviously a different license that we have to then start discussions to go
Yeah, I
down
get
the
that.
path of.
Especially, yeah,
Yeah.
especially if
So
you really want to go into the Robot Battle 5 setting for what there is of it. I
yes,
know there isn't nearly as
exactly.
much of
Yes,
that as there is with other things. I think that's why it shows up more
yes,
in fan-made stuff rather than, any kind of official things. Like you said, there's a lot of
yes,
legal wrangling for these kinds of things. Although it would be kind of cool because it does fit very
Yes.
well with how you'd expect things to go, given what we know about the current ending of
Yep.
the Mac canon, so what it is, such as it is.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
We're trying to look at how we can actually break up the game into early, middle, and late war type thing, very similar to something like a Flames of War or a Bolt Action, so that
Mm.
um, I call them the purists, the people that only want to use the specific things from specific periods. Those people are very passionate about, you can't have an AFS-1 fighting with a fireball because, well, there was only so many made of these, and how did they survive to this? Well, okay, that's gaming. That's just whatever.
Hmm.
Um, but there is an interest for these different settings. So we're just sort of looking at various different directions as to what we can do once the rules are out.
Yeah. Plus,
And that just takes time.
yeah. I mean, worst comes to worst, you look online for artwork of the from the machines and stuff from that. You print them on little pieces of paper, and you just use those with the rules that you guys come up with. So, you know, the people will find a way.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh, so, what goes into making these
Yes, exactly.
miniatures?
And it's
Oh,
interesting when you go back to the board game.
hmm. No,
Sorry,
continue your thoughts.
I was
Sorry.
just going to say with the board game, there's actually a lot of units there that have never been made. So there's one called the Raven, which is a tank that the IMA uses. These are things that there's as a side shot picture in a board game, and that's all the information we have. But it's
Mhm.
a part of the setting. So
Yeah,
those sorts of things will be made, but there'll be a bit of play from our behalf, from our part, and we'll be discussing them with Cow and all that sort of stuff to try and get a good idea as to what they should be.
yeah.
Um,
There's been
so
quite a
yeah,
bit of
there's
that
there's
also.
certain things like that have just never get seen.
Yeah, there's been quite a bit also of
Sorry.
like, I mean, the actual. I know. The lag is killing me. The There's been a lot also of that in the
Yeah.
the general fan modeling community, where people will take an image, just a sketch image and from some book or article somewhere, and scratch build something completely new based on that. So there is a desire to oh, this is cool. I'm gonna make
Yes.
this in 3D. It's just like that.
Yes. Yes. We actually we quite often not necessarily steal it, but we borrow lots of this sort of stuff. We found a photo one time when Mike was still alive of it was a Conrad with just boxes and everything built around on the back of it. And it's just a side photo. And I sent it to him and I said, "These are great looking figures. This is a great looking figure. Sorry, we should do something like this." Um, he said, "Yep." 6 hours later, he came back with some hand sculpted models, six different figures, and that came our Conrad Combat Engineers. And
Nice.
so we built a unit out of a single picture that somebody else out there, some fan had made. And I actually like the fact that we're actually using the fans stuff to build a whole world.
Hmm.
It's not just about Sensei Yokoyama's ideas. It's this is a growing living thing that people out there are doing all the time. So that's nice.
Yeah, agreed. That reminds me, you mentioned the Fireball Gigantes. I think that one started as a fan
Yes.
design based on a Zoids model that Cow had made and just modified it to be able to fit an SFAS in there, which is perfectly in
Yes.
tune
I
with
think
exactly with how other things like that, the Hornice and other vehicles, where the suits
yep.
themselves are, part and parcel of a larger vehicle like that. I've seen like quite a few things do that.
Yes. Yep. And there's a lot of that you see that that so there's a new figure, and I cannot remember the name of it, but it's slowly being built out of the front of a Heinrich, a PKA,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a whole vehicle behind it, almost like a skirt, but it's totally different. It looks amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's what it should be. This thing that morphs from one idea into multiple ideas, into jeeps and buggies and all range of crazy stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, um,
And it also makes sense because just walking around, even if you're in powered armor, is going to take you a while to get anywhere. So having
yes,
vehicles that can act as transport and also augmentations in terms of your firepower and capabilities makes perfect sense for a setting where these suits have
yep.
such a strong presence.
I've lost you again. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. I don't know, but basically the idea being that yeah, these kinds of designs that incorporate the suits into larger vehicles make a lot of sense because you
Hmm.
need something to transport the suits around beyond their usual range. So it makes perfect
Yes.
sense for that. Like transport, like you take the nut rocker slash nutcracker, make a transport version out of that, or the
Yep.
various aircraft and stuff like that that incorporate the suit as the cockpit.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes. Yes. Like the Hornice and those
Yeah,
type of things.
exactly.
Yes. Yep. I agree.
It's a great ejection
Yeah.
seat for certain, that's
Um,
for sure.
exactly. Exactly. And look, I think when it first started, they, like I said, they were just kit building. But then it's sort of this idea of like you say, the suits being a part of a vehicle has taken it a whole direction of its own.
Hmm.
And yeah, there's lots of people out there doing that sort of stuff. And it's very interesting to watch it from the background.
Hmm.
Because we look at it sometimes and say, oh, we'd love to turn that into a 15 mil vehicle or 15 mil suit or whatever. Sometimes it's pushing the boundaries a bit too far.
Hmm.
So we have to say no. But yeah, there's some amazing stuff. The model makers out there are amazing at what they do. I'm in awe of what they do because I can't do it to their standard.
Yeah, I
I
can.
paint little
Yeah,
stuff. I don't paint the 1 in 20 stuff. So yeah, I get
yeah,
it.
I can just stick plastic together and give it a coat of paint. That's the extent of my ability.
Yes.
uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's if I decide to give it a coat of
Exactly.
paint anyway,
We
because half the model kits I do it don't even require that, so they don't even require glue. That tells you the
exactly.
extent of my
Yep.
ability there. Uh, But
Yep.
one thing that's interesting,
And
very
the
cool about the Mac essentially is that, as you say, it started out as this hodgepodge of different ideas, but it developed an aesthetic all of its own in that regard. Like going beyond simply, like for instance, the factions themselves. You could easily
yes.
go with like an Allies versus Axis in the future, but they are their own. Even for as briefly sketched as they are their own factions. The SDR, the Central Democratic Republic, aren't space Nazis. They're closer, in fact, to an actual. Well, they are a
Yes.
democratic republic.
Exactly.
They, as far as I can tell, there's nothing
Yes.
particularly
Exactly.
fascistic about them or anything like that. They're closer to
No.
like coalition forces in Afghanistan, dealing with a lot of coming in thinking they're going to be treated as liberators, getting bogged
Yes.
down in an advanced war against guerrillas and using a lot of drones.
Yep.
And this started in the 80s, like
Yes. Exactly.
20 or so years before the GWAT. I mean, come on.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's interesting when you read some of the background that it talks about how um, the Strahl come in and they use the heavy hand to try and force things to happen, and that's where everything starts breaking down.
Mm,
Um, but I guess depending on where you stand on things, sometimes that's where the police have to go. That's what the enforcement has to do to bring order. And yeah, it's not as easy as saying, well, yeah, just turn up and yeah, everything will be all right. The presence there is not enough. So yeah, that it's a very much a world of there is no good and bad side. It's all based on where you stand, I guess. And I think that's very similar to like you say, modern day today. Where you stand is where you what you think. So
Hmm.
anyway,
Yeah.
too philosophical for our conversation.
Yeah. Well, the IMA has their own problems. Like, sure, they're the plucky underdog colonials, dealing with the big bad government. They hired the
Yes,
very same assholes who caused the problem in the first place, for the most part. I mean, those
yes,
mercenaries influx coming in as an influx are part of the reason why things went to shit. So,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly.
Not to
Yep,
mention, yeah, like they're mercs. They're not necessarily the best people for the job, and they're not necessarily interested in what you want. They're just
exactly,
paid.
exactly.
So, and yeah, they are kind
Yes,
of sort of
exactly.
responsible for the whole Pluto thing. So, yeah, it's six in one hand, half a dozen in the other.
Exactly, exactly. And it's always funny when every year we run a little get together we call Ma.K, and it's basically a playtesting event. But the guys that turn up, there's always well, I'm the goodies and you're the baddies, and it's always fun being the referee that's outside of that setting because they both will quite happily stand there and argue and laugh about the fact that the other person's the baddie and they're the goodies. They're both fighting for freedom, and it's always fun.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And then the robots come in and smack everybody.
yes, exactly, exactly.
Uh,
What we would love to find out is so obviously the Galactic Federation that sends the Australian, um, who are they, and
mhm.
how many other republics and whatever else is out there, however many other worlds and armies and organizations are there? These are things that we could expand the world like crazy.
Hmm.
We would love to know more of that, but there's no information out there,
I know
and
that
I don't see it
yeah,
coming.
there's been at least two interstellar conflicts happen, like,
Yes,
briefly mentioned, which is why there are so many mercenaries flying around. So, yeah, okay, what was that like? Like,
yes,
fast does it take?
yes,
How much time does it take to get troops from wherever the Strahls are, their homeworld is, to Earth? Like, is this, what is communications like? We
yes,
don't know anything about it, what the FTL situation is for this universe.
exactly,
Yeah. Like, what's happening in the
exactly.
rest of the solar system for that matter? Things
Yeah,
spreading out to
exactly,
there.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. It, and that would if we could if there was an ability to make that or we were able to get permission to expand that like I said that whole setting that there's new vehicles, there's new suits, there's new everything in there.
Hmm.
And that's yeah, that in itself would be amazing. Um, I don't know if the pure traditional Mac fans would like that as much, but once again, if it comes from those that have originally designed it, well then
It is
it's given the
official.
seal of approval. So
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I mean, if the
maybe in the
person,
future.
yeah, if the person who made the original makes the new thing in the universe of the original,
Yes.
it's part of the original universe. I mean, sorry, that's how the rules work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah,
Uh,
that could happen in the future. Let's wait and see.
yeah.
So yeah.
I'm looking over, like, some of the rules here that you guys have come up with just from the,
Mhm.
ground assault rules like that. There's some really good stuff. You guys have gone into good detail without going too complicated, I find. I especially like the way you did
Yep.
lasers, how you either
Yep.
shoot multiple times or just shoot one big one. It makes them different to me. A good way of differentiating them
Yes.
from traditional, machine gun fire,
Yep.
stuff like that. So there's you did spend some good attention on this kind of stuff to make things
Yep.
feel different
It,
mechanically,
it,
as opposed to just having bigger,
yes.
smaller
Yep.
numbers in certain places.
Yes. Well, it's grown. This has been almost 4 years now of playing with this and working at it. And so it has grown from something which was very basic and I think it had maybe 12 units total, including vehicles back in the original setting,
Hmm.
to something that it is now. And as you said, how do you differentiate the difference between a laser, a rocket, a railgun? They can't just have different numbers because, well, realistically, you need more than that. You need something that why do I take this gun over this one? Because the range is different. That's not enough.
Hmm.
So we've slowly built it into something more. And as with most game design, as you start building, you create your own problems. So you then have to create solutions to those problems. We've got a couple of guys in Japan that are translating it for us into Japanese,
Hmm.
and it's amazing how many things they find because they're going, well, what does this mean? What does this mean? And they come back to us and say, please explain all this. And it's very good for me because, all right, I've got to think through and explain to them in a simple term how this thing works. It makes sense to me when I write it, but that doesn't necessarily mean it makes sense to everybody.
Yeah,
Um,
that's probably like the
so yeah,
ultimate.
we've worked fairly hard on it.
Yeah, that's probably like the ultimate in
Yeah,
playtesting. Just having someone, okay, going over your text with a fine-tooth comb in the process of turning it into a whole other language. It's like, okay, this doesn't make sense
yes,
here, this doesn't make sense there. It's more than just looking at the actual rules themselves, it's looking how understandable they are as well.
yes. I'm really grateful for the amount of effort they're putting in. It's something I couldn't have even thought to have happen. Well, not at this time yet, and they've taken it on. They've loved it.
Hmm.
Um, I guess the for us the starting point with all this was um, we call it the minimum dice roll mechanics. Basically, the idea was when we started this, I didn't want and I use Games Workshop as an example. I didn't want a roll to hit, then a roll to wound, then a roll to save, then a roll for invulnerable. I didn't want all that. So basically, we've got one dice roll that does everything from rolling to hit to damage. Everything's done in that one dice roll,
Mm.
and it works very succinctly. It works from the guys that play that have come from a lot of different backgrounds. They're always, wow, this is very simple, very easy to do. Um, so yeah,
Yeah, simple to do, but covers a wide enough range of actions and situations that it remains applicable and you don't have to come up with new versions of the rules in order to cover for those bases.
yes,
Because that's the thing that I've seen a lot of,
exactly,
yeah, that's something
exactly,
I've seen a lot of rules light kind of systems end up failing at. They try to have one rule to rule them all, essentially, but it ends up being, plagued
yes,
by so many exceptions and special cases that, what started out as something simple
yes,
just bloats up versus something that is not too small in the sense that it does need to cover a certain amount of gaming space, but isn't 16 3 inches wide. Although I do enjoy those systems quite a bit. Let's face the facts. I do enjoy my comprehensive rule systems quite a bit, but sometimes you just want something simple too.
yes,
Mhm.
yes, yep,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
So in
So
terms of what was I gonna say there? So one thing that I always like in terms of you mentioned this a bit when we were talking about Mordenheim slash Necromunda, the idea of things continuing past the main, more than just being a simple skirmish, but having consequences that continue on into the next ones. The idea of a war game campaign, so to speak, which is something I always appreciate quite a bit for these kinds of games.
yes,
Do you guys
yes,
have plans for something along those lines where you could kind of like recreate the whole, War for Earth almost?
yep, yes. I'll start off by saying yes, we do. The rules that we've got right now. Um, what they'll have to go through is once we've finished all our playtesting everything, we'll have to get approval from Cal.
Hmm.
My graphic designer's already got ideas that the name's going to change. That there'll be beautiful pictures and art and all that sort of stuff. We'll take it to Cal and we'll get him to approve it. But one section of that we haven't even bothered putting in yet is there'll be a scenario section, there'll be a campaign section that'll bring all these together.
Hmm.
Um, at the moment, I'm actually asking the guys that are actually on the Facebook page to think about it and start writing scenarios for their own hometown. So one of the guys is in Canberra, so write a story about New Canberra. Write 3 or 4 scenarios about New Canberra that we can actually have as a setting for a part of the Australian campaign. I've got another friend in America who I think he's in Chicago. Why not make something there?
Hmm.
Send all this stuff to me, and we can put it together as a large scale campaign for people to play, set in the locations of where the players actually live. They know the terrain, they know the surrounding, they know the mountains, the hills, the all that sort of stuff. Where would um, an army set up best? Because they're not going to set up on the top of a hill. They're not going to set up in a where's best for all this sort of stuff. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm getting
Bearing in
them to
mind that World War
help by
IV
writing
has
some stuff.
happened, so chances are your hometown might be a smoldering radioactive crater.
Exactly. It could be. It could be. Yes. So
Yeah.
it's more just to get people interested and a part of what's going on.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So
Yeah.
the campaign is definitely something's going to happen.
Oh, that's good to hear. Because do you think it'd be, which would you prefer in terms of how to do it? The kind of thing where you have linked scenarios where, depending on how you do in one, you move on to another one and so on and so forth, kind of like a branching kind of thing. Or more like, here is a map of the world risk style, go at it. Which do you think
Yep.
works best in terms of what you're looking at?
Well, look, I used to play a lot of campaigns for a game called Clan Wars. And the guy that used to write them never wrote a scenario where it was a 3,000 point army versus a 3,000 point army, and bang, you've got to do this. They
Mm-hmm.
were, um, there could be a 1,500 point army versus a 3,000 point army. And it was not about that game wasn't about the pitched battle, and then who won. It was about something like, well, you have to hold out for 2 turns and you have to slowly move back. You can only move half speed, and what damage could you inflict onto the enemy that was, for whatever reason, doing something. I like something very different from the standard.
Mm-hmm.
So doing something like that to me is sounds really good. The straight up fight is always good, and that's always going to happen. Points versus points is always going to happen. How can we do something different though? A little recon team of 3 suit units versus a tank company. Holy crap, we've just turned up and yeah, this is what's going on. Let's get out of here. But our pickup points over in that corner, so we've got to get to that corner rather than just running backwards off the field. It's something. What's different? Um, I like that sort of thing. I like a randomness to be thrown into a scenario rather than just let's roll dice and fight. Well,
Hmm.
what happens if on turn 3 there's an earthquake and you know something happens like that?
Yeah.
It's those things that I think are what makes a campaign different. It's not just a take over this area, do this sort of thing. Um, yeah, so that's sort of my thinking.
Hmm.
Um, how you do that for a campaign that makes it fair, that becomes very different. So that's something we're gonna have to think about a lot more for
Yeah.
fairness, because yeah, that's an important part of gaming.
Yeah. In order to get that fair, you basically have to be able to implement ways of evening the odds outside of the battle, I think. Like having something like
Yes,
certain actions for developing intelligence in order to sabotage or spy on the enemies. You capture
yep,
this particular
yes,
area. It contains a factory that you can use to build additional units for at cost.
yes,
To grab like that, or capture the enemy
yes,
supply depot, grab all the stuff that's there, and all of a sudden now you have some of his units that you can use on your side. Or like
yes,
yeah, yeah.
exactly.
Or for instance, like say, okay, I spend X intel to locate the supply line for this. A convoy is headed there. I will ambush this convoy, but and he has other additional units in supporting areas. So I have X number of turns to attack,
Yep.
seize this convoy, and escape before he can take those ones from the adjoining areas and send them in as
Yep.
reinforcements. So those kinds of things, I think it makes it interesting because these situations are based on
Yes.
the strategic map layout and the capabilities that the players have decided. Okay, I have my big
Yes.
army here ready for this assault.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to send my little army sneaking around here to attack your supply lines and screw up your logistics.
Yes, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And the thing that we found with one of the Ma.K events, I wrote a very basic scenario of, capture the objective. Now, a, a a cunning player will actually think, all right, what unit can I use to capture that in the last moment? And somebody will use a drop unit. And you've got to be very careful when you write a scenario that you don't give a part of a game that just gets destroyed by a cunning player that can find a way of getting around the rules of moving towards it. You know,
Yeah.
suddenly this objective on the back line of the opponent is being taken by a drop unit dropping into it, and game's over. And it's like,
Gotta love
well, you
anti-air.
need to make, yeah, it's just got you got to be careful how you write these sorts of things.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly,
that's
exactly.
yeah. Well, that's one of the
So
advantages
yeah,
of situations where it's very the objectives are player determined in that regard. Because then, if they set up
yep,
a
yep,
thing, they set up like a forward operating base in one region in order to aid in the conquest of a particular area, but they don't set up enough air defenses. Well, it's their own damn fault when the IMA equivalent of an
exactly.
A-10 gunship, the Falcon, comes in and just bursts it away to nothing, and then all of a sudden, oh,
Yes.
yeah, your CNC network's completely fucked at this point. Well, sucks to be you. Should have brought a couple of
Yes, exactly,
AA dollhouses
exactly.
in there to defend the place. What am I gonna say? It's not my fault.
Yep, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's actually interesting you say that because it's one of the things we learnt about 12 months ago that certain armies didn't have enough anti-aircraft weapons,
Hmm.
and suddenly we had to start rethinking through how we were going to do some of the weapons as well because, well, one army has 5 or 6 units, and one army has 2 units that are rare that you can't buy or you can't buy enough of.
Mm.
Let's change it. Let's make it work. Yeah. So yeah, it's been a long process. I think we're getting close to being finished. I'd
Nice.
love to have lots more people involved. If your players, your fans out there want to jump in and join in, pick it to death. I'm more than happy for that. That's great. That's what we want.
Yeah, the rules are
We don't want to
available.
release something and go, all right, a week later, here's the FAQ.
Yeah, the rules are available
FAQs
as
are for years down the track. Sorry.
no, no. You can blame the internet in this case. The tubes are clogged.
Yeah, this is all going to have to be edited out.
Oh no, well that's the thing. Every now and then you're freezing on on my side, but I can still hear you just fine. So
Yep.
it's like, okay,
Yes.
I can deal with that. This can work. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but as I was trying to say, the Facebook page that you mentioned has all the rules available in their current form for people to browse, as well as army lists and all this stuff. So if people want to go over there and check it out, play test them on their own time with their, just cut out a couple of little minis or use bottle caps and whatever hell
Yep.
you happen to have around is to, instead stand-ins and try this
Yep.
thing out. You can, do it right now, which is always nice.
Yeah. Yeah. The other interesting with what you're saying there, we actually had a group of players playing something similar that way with
Mm.
just cardboard cutouts. Um, and they came to me and actually said, "Look, do you have a starter list?" And we didn't at the time. So we made up a starter list, like a 600 point army, a 300 point army for both sides, and they're on the website. But realistically, the surprising thing for them, for say a game of 40K or a game of bolt action or something like that, you're talking almost $1,000 to sort of get into these sorts of things, but maybe more for some of them. For us, you're talking about up to it's about 600 points is $200 Australian. So it's you're talking 15 packs. It's not an expensive game to get into. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously, a 600 point army is not going to be where you stop because you want all the bits and pieces. But
yeah.
we're gamers. We do silly things like that. Yeah, we don't just have four figures. We have 400. Yeah, so yeah,
uh,
we're fairly cheap to get into as a game.
yeah, definitely. Especially in comparison to like, this plastic gold mine that is Warhammer. Let's first face facts.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Uh,
Okay, so yeah, look, we've we're actually trying to keep the price down. I know sometimes I look and I think, oh, we're at the expensive end of the 15 mil. Um, but realistically, for a game in the complete sense of playing it, it's still quite cheap in the scheme of things.
yeah.
So yeah,
Well, not just, that, but it's also quality. These things are,
yep,
pretty solid. This is just solid metal things. These aren't just, little plastic minis. These are metal.
yes,
So what goes, how do you guys make these anyway?
yep,
The
yes.
get the how what is the process of making metal minis?
Okay, so basically we design it on 3D printers, obviously print it. We then cast into we make molds out of vulcanized rubber.
Hmm.
And then basically I spend some time casting up little metal figures and breaking off the molds and putting them in packages. There's there's a whole world um, of depth and understanding to the mold making and that sort of stuff. But basically, it's as simple as that. We spin casting. Um, Mike used to do it. Now I've taken over his business. I'm doing that side of it.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's just a slow process of making molds and casting figures.
Damn. Like
Uh,
so, in spite of the whole 3D printing and computer generated stuff for the
yep.
initial designs, this is still a very old school process, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. We do so for a bigger vehicle like a Nutcracker, we
Mhm.
actually nowadays we actually 3D print. We used to resin cast, sorry. Now we're 3D printing the bodies. It's just the chance of air bubbles and those sort of problems are reduced with 3D printing.
Mm.
So we've gone down that path with some stuff, but for fiddly bits, for fine bits, having metal just for us makes sense because 15 mil it breaks when it's just resin. So
Yeah.
this is I think this is the better way to go.
Yeah, like looking here at the Super Jerry, you can see on the legs, you've got these very thin pieces right here with the connectors on the hydraulics there.
Yes.
Yeah, things like that. Or the way, like, the rocket launchers on the sides and stuff like that. Or here at the back, you have these little bits here that I had
Yep.
that glued on. Yeah, I imagine in resin that would be very, very
Yep.
fragile. And this thing can take a bit of a beating, frankly.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
Yes.
my
Yes.
baby
Exactly.
son has
And
accidentally
look,
dropped this thing, and it's still in one piece. So, that it
that's
is
great to hear. It's good. Yeah.
toddler approved.
Yeah. So look, and the plan is not to move away from that. We will expand and use more 3D printing processes as we can. It is a useful tool,
Hmm.
but while we've got the casting machine, we've got the vulcanizer, we've got all the gear to make the molds. Um, it's a good way of doing something cheap, but also strong, durable, things that last. So yeah,
Yeah. And speaking of miniatures outside of Maschinen Krieger, you guys do a whole bunch of different stuff too. You got 6 millimeter, 15, obviously, 18 millimeter, 20, 28, 54 millimeter stuff. You've got
yep,
World War
yep,
One Aussie diggers and Vietnam War soldiers in 54 millimeters.
yep,
That's really cool.
yep,
Whole bunch of different things here. I'm looking at you have fantasy, World War One, World War Two. You guys cover a whole bunch of different ranges in terms of you have Elvis impersonators.
yes,
They're
yeah,
28 millimeter Elvis
Yes,
impersonator
yes, yes.
minis if you want them.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they were actually designed to use for Blood Bowl, so as a Blood Bowl team.
Yeah.
Um, but we actually have coming out in the not too distant future. I've taken those bodies and I've put the alien heads from the Alien Invasion on them, and they'll be called Alien Infiltrators. So they'll be a new part of the Alien range, and it's just like let's have some fun with this sort of stuff. Um, when Mike was sculpting for me, I basically where we started was this idea of Mike, what do you want to sculpt that you never thought would sell, and let's just do something strange with it. And it grew. So he made the Alien Invasion, he made Dark World War, he made all these different things, and we just tried them out. And some sell, some don't. Some are, a slow burn.
Mhm.
Some sell at shows amazingly well, and you just don't know what sells.
Yeah. No, same for
We
our stuff.
we've got a lot more ranges coming. The Alien Invasion's got a huge yes, yeah. The Alien Invasion's got a huge range of stuff about to come out in the next 12 months or so. We've got a new range of what's called feral elves coming.
Mm.
They're all the old again a company called Maidenhead Miniatures that used to make Mike sculpted for them, and we've got the rights for that now. So we've just we we're sort of doing what we like. If it sells, that's great. There's people out there that want weird and unique and different, so let's give it to them.
Yeah. I mean, the great thing about this stuff is that it doesn't really decay. It's got a shelf life that's virtually infinite. So if you make something and it doesn't sell right
Yes.
away, you can just put it away for a little bit and it's still there
Yep.
when someone else wants it. So you pretty much have an extremely
Exactly.
long tail on anything that you want to go for right there. So that,
Yep.
yeah, you have a
We,
chance to experiment with stuff without worrying too much.
exactly. We're actually looking at the situation at the moment. The sales for all that 54 millimeter that you talked about
Hmm.
has died off over time. Um, there's only a limited number of people that want that type of stuff. So the stock that we've got will basically go back into the pot, be melted back down. We'll turn it back into something else, but those figures will stay on the website as a order as needed sort of thing, and we'll still make them, we'll still sell them if you want to buy them.
Yeah,
But
mold on
why
command.
do we need to keep, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
because
So
that's the great thing. This
that's the
stuff is
plan.
recyclable. You can just melt it down and make something
Exactly,
new out of it. That's great.
exactly. Yep, exactly. So that's part of the reason we've stuck with the casting. It's just so usable. It,
Hmm.
it works well. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad you do because one, you guys have the experience with it, which means, the quality is there.
yep,
Like, just looking at these, looking at the
yep,
Millazines, you even sent me a bunch of little desert guys with my order there, just, for the size comparison. And
yep,
yeah, those look, even at
yep.
that size, you can see the details on the face and everything like that. So you guys really know what you're doing.
Yes,
So
yep.
kudos on that.
Yeah. Well, they're the 15 mil versions of the World War Two, World War 21 41 range. So
Hmm.
that's what the larger scale ones look like. Only
Yeah.
in small scale, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is really good stuff. I mean, the fact that you have so many different ranges and stuff like that, and that so much of it can be used with compatibility with each other. Like, as you said, the uh, World War 2141, which fits well with the Machine Krieger line.
Yep.
You were saying
Hmm.
about infantry that there's not really much mention in the, official, SF3 / Machine Krieger canon. Well, you made some. It's not technically there, but it's the closest thing,
Yeah.
and it fits in just perfectly
Yep.
fine. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. My situation has always been that just because the setting doesn't say that they're being used, I can't believe that you wouldn't use them because, well, a guy with a machine gun running out and shooting at a suit is just as good as a guy in a suit running out and shooting at a suit. So why not have these things that both sides would use?
hmm,
Let's put something in there to fill that spot. So yeah, we sort of, and that's where the the Maschinen Krieger figures we've got have grown so much because we've made these support units and we've made these units that are never mentioned, but probably should be in a war setting.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Plus, you should have scenarios where sometimes you get caught outside your suit. I mean, that
Yes,
right there,
exactly.
the objective, get to your suit. I mean, there you go. You already create part of a scenario just
Yes,
right there.
exactly,
Hmm.
exactly. So look, it's sort of grown its own world
Hmm.
of creation, and we find ourselves going into building the next thing because, well, if you've got that, why don't you have this? And it all grows from there.
Yeah. I bet the only thing you're missing is like, hot chicks and mostly unzipped flight suits. I've seen quite a few of the Machine Krieger models. I'm
We've been
not
asked for
complaining,
that.
by the way. I like that.
No, no. No. We've been asked for that various times. Um, we've chosen to steer clear of that just because I don't think it's necessary for the 15 mil or the gaming setting. Um, maybe the 28 mil, maybe. It's realistically they're 15 mil tall. The bikini sort of doesn't really stand out too much in that unless you make it really stand out. So yeah, um, I have been asked for all female infantry units and stuff like that. So that may be something that may come out of it,
Mhm.
because at the moment it tends to be very much an all male setting.
Yeah.
From our point of view, I mean, yeah,
Yeah, true. Although it does, I do like the fact that that's a recurring thing that is in the modeling that I've seen,
yes,
family. It does feel like that whole kind of World War II pin-up kind of,
yes,
nose art kind of feel to it. It feels
yes,
appropriate, even though
yes,
it's
yep,
kind of like, slightly odd, but it feels like
yep,
it's something that would happen in this kind of a universe. If only just, for like the artwork or something like that.
yes, yep. Yes, exactly. And look, our problem has just been simply that we're making it at such a small scale. Is it necessary? It won't affect the gameplay. It
Oh
doesn't
no.
affect anything else other than just and we've actually made some vehicles. So the Fleeter Mouse we made as a opened cockpit one.
Mm.
I think we made that specifically for the sculptors out there that want to make up the dioramas and all that. I think I've sold about three of them. So the war gamers, some do these dioramas, but most are not interested in that. So it's yeah, we might make a pack of six barely clad um, women, but will they sell? Is it something that's worth the time and the money? So there
Yeah.
is a bit of a yeah. We've talked about it and we've sort of said at the moment no. So yeah,
Just so long as you've talked about it, that's all that really matters.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
We did lots of study into the artwork.
Yeah. Well, so have I. I mean, I freaking bought the books for
Yes,
crying out loud. I mean,
yeah,
the
exactly,
Mac and
exactly.
BD here ends on one of such character just coming out of the cockpit.
Yes, yeah,
So
exactly.
it's
That's
canon. It's
yes,
canon.
exactly,
This is what they're dressed
exactly.
as when they're in
Yes,
their suits.
exactly.
I didn't make it
Yep, I
up.
get
Don't blame
it.
me. Oh,
Yeah. Now look
oh man. Well, I mean,
at the
this is
moment
something.
it's
Yeah.
just maybe in the future someday.
Yeah. I mean, this is something about it. It's like this is not a grim setting, which is something I enjoy because so much of like Warhammer, obviously, but other settings as well. Trench Crusade's another one that's come out. It's just like this relentlessly grim. Everything
Yep.
sucks. Everything is darkness and grim and death and.
Yes.
It's like,
Yep.
okay,
Yes.
careful with that edge. You're gonna cut yourself. It's like this is definitely.
Exactly. Exactly.
I mean, it's a war, so there is horrible
Yep.
things happening, as you can imagine. There's tragedy, but there's also heroism. There's also like there's horror, but there's also moments of
Yep.
genuine humanity, and it's it's one of those things that what makes war such an
Yes.
interesting subject is that war is hell,
Yep.
but it's a hell that people are willing
Yep.
to go into for good reasons sometimes.
Yes.
It's
Yep.
that
Yep.
ambivalence, that kind of, that mixture of good things and bad things at the highest level of intensity that is possible for human beings to experience. Now throw in giant robots.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Sorry, you're dropping in and out there. I've lost you for a little bit again.
Uh,
But yeah,
yeah.
I understand what you were basically saying. And it's one of those situations that I think that how do you actually show that in a setting for miniatures? I mean, the art that you show in your books and stuff like that does breed that.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, when we're putting little toy soldiers on the board, um, it's irrelevant because you've painted them how you want. Um, One of the things I love about the BattleTech setting is the fact that any suit color can be used. People go full camouflage, they go turquoise and orange. It's not about being dark and grim. It's each lance or each company or each whatever has the colors to suit that theme, and it
Hmm.
doesn't. The war doesn't have to be this. The rain's coming down, the fog's in, the sky is dark, and yeah, it doesn't have to be that.
Yeah.
So
Although that does make
I,
for some
I
nice
often think that's a
photos.
nice way to do it. Yes, exactly,
Yeah. I mean,
exactly,
you just throw some laser fire from a Schenkel or something like that, and oh yeah, that looks good. I've seen some.
exactly.
Yeah. I really wish I could get my hands on that compiled, that two-volume compilation, that SF3D Chronicles of all the original Hobby Japan
Yes,
stuff. I have not been able to find that anywhere, either in stock or at a reasonable
yep.
price.
Which that one just over there.
Yes, that one just
They're
over
just sitting
there,
behind me.
you bastard. You Aussie
Yes, I've got
bastard.
I've got about 25 MacBooks sitting there, so it's been a slow collection over years.
Oh, well, I'm getting started
Yeah,
here.
yeah. No, that's all right. You've got to start somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Well,
So,
I think I started with
yep.
some good ones. These have a lot of very
Yes,
cool
definitely,
info.
definitely.
I don't
Yes.
suppose you've heard any word of any kind of English translations of any of this stuff, have you?
So I lost all that. I don't know what you just said
Sorry.
then.
I
Sorry.
don't suppose you've heard anything of any kind of down the pipe of any kind of English translations of this stuff at any point.
Yeah, I don't. My own personal opinion is I don't think that we'll see that.
Mhm.
Lincoln's doing all of his stuff in English, which is great.
Oh,
But
yeah.
his is basically very much modeling stuff, a lot of background for those specific units he's doing.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's very much focused on what he's working on.
Yeah. Those
Um,
ones are more like
I
portfolios and
I
showing off
I
the
get the
modeling.
feeling that yes, yes.
Hmm.
I get the feeling that Cal's sort of got to a point where he's gone, I'm really great that this is still going ahead, that I'm happy about it, but I almost feel like he's stepped back and gone, well, I'm happy just to let the community work on the kits now.
Hmm.
And I don't see him, well, I don't believe, and this is only my opinion, so there's nothing written here, I haven't heard anything, but I don't think he's going to be making more of the setting. I don't see more books
Hmm.
unless it's these other groups doing them. I don't. Yeah, I think that's sort of where we are now.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that's not necessarily a bad place to be, because he's already done,
No.
the heavy lifting in this case of the
Yes.
original concept and working with the team over at Hobby Japan during all those years to create this
Yep.
thing and create something that was not only unique enough but interesting enough to attract the kind of following that's able to pick up that torch and run with it in whatever direction they see fit.
Yes.
Hmm.
Exactly. Um, and with that, I think that when you listen to the people talk about the early writings of this sort of stuff, it was exciting. It was totally different. It wasn't Star Wars. It wasn't Star Trek. It wasn't the things of the 80s that were sci-fi. This was different again.
Hmm.
Um, it wasn't even golden age sci-fi. It was totally different, and it was almost like waiting for the next um, write-up to come out so that you could sit and read it again about the next part of the story.
Yeah.
And the old guys used to love that part of it. So yeah, I think I don't see it being translated. You can I've done some of the translations with Google Translate.
Yeah.
It's not great, but you do what you can, and it
Yeah.
gives you a basic idea of what's going on.
Yeah. It's getting
Um,
better. I mean, honestly, I've
yeah,
been, just taking pictures with my phone and, translating that. And as you say, it's not perfect,
yes,
but honestly, it's better than it was a couple of years ago. So,
exactly. Yeah. So I obviously our book will come out in English,
mhm.
and hopefully if we can get people like Maschinen Krieger or other sites to give us permission, we'll add in some of their history, their backgrounds, that information, so that there will be more English content out there for the rest of the world, basically.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, if we can do that, that's a positive direction to go with it.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to seeing that stuff. Where can people find your stuff on the internet?
Okay, so we've got a obviously the Facebook page, the Mac in 15 fan group. That's a group that we do most of our playtesting, most of our discussions. Um, our files go up there so that they're free download files from there. Um, we have a YouTube channel that we show our videos of how to build things rather than sending you out a instruction kit. We have a YouTube page. What's it? Mac at Mac Ma.K underscore gaming. Um, and that's basically just to help with that. It will expand into how the rules are played and all that as we get close to being finished.
Mhm.
And obviously, there's the Slave2Gaming website, www.slave2gaming.com. And that's got it should have the link to the rules. It should have the entry level army lists on there, and various other stuff, as well as obviously all our miniatures.
Yeah. Yeah, all I'm looking at now and all that stuff is there. Yeah, this is, very much, these are the places to look for this. And it's really nice to see this kind of stuff, being available even before it's ready, just to be able to look at it and test it out and get a feel of where it's going with this.
Yep.
Because that's, always very good to see, especially for, games like this that are based very much in that kind of, fan community who are really interested in that particular thing. It's nice to see the fans and the people who are making this official stuff actually giving back to the fans and contributing to this wider world
Yes.
and wider setting that
Yes.
is
Exactly.
been going on since 1982. This started. I mean,
Yes.
wow.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. And it's had its reiteration and a change in there, but it's yeah. The fan base is, especially for the model kits, it's very loyal. It's very
Hmm.
this is the setting. This is the figures. This is how it, yeah. And I'd like to say we've got a pretty amazing group of players and fans in our little community so far, and that
Hmm.
hopefully will grow. Um, it's a slow process with everything. We're in a hugely flooded market. Wargaming in the last 10 or 15 years has grown in such a huge way. There's so many games out there now.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, you just have to slowly work at things and build up to that. So yeah, um, we like I said, I'll keep saying it. We've got amazing fans. Yeah,
Well, I'm glad to be one of them.
yeah. Thank you. Yeah,
uh,
I
well,
expect you to write a scenario now to add into the rule book.
I can see Quebec City
Yeah.
being under fire. I could see that working out.
Yes.
I mean, hell,
See that
stuff happens in Canada, as I said, in this setting. So
yes,
hell yeah,
exactly. Yes.
that's gonna be fun.
Yep.
All right.
Definitely. definitely.
On that note, what else is going to be coming in new? I know that you're working on the Königskrot, the next miniature for that. You guys said the Fireball Gigantes that you're working on. Is there anything else coming up new in terms of
Yep.
new pieces of metal for the people want them?
Well, so next month I think it is. We've got a Mac release of vehicles. So there's the re-release of the two Falcons, the two different versions of the Falcons. There's the Zerstover, the alternate Croat,
Hmm.
and the Camel are coming.
Nice.
So five new vehicles there. There's yeah. There are about another, I think, dozen or so infantry suit units coming. I think they're further towards the end of the year. Um, then there's some big vehicles coming. You've got some new nutcrackers, the transports. You've got the Siren, the Green Buffalo, big transports,
Nice.
big walkers. The as you mentioned, the Koenig Croats, the two different variants, the Fireball Gigantus, all these sort of things. They're all planned in the process of coming. Um, it's just a slow process with us. We're basically a two-man business, so it just takes time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I look forward to seeing all of that, and I look forward to seeing them on gaming tables. Mr. Edney,
definitely.
this has been a lot of fun talking to you. I mean, it's not
Great.
often I get people from this far away on the planet who are willing to, adjust their schedule to a 12-hour time difference. So, yeah, thank you very much for coming.
Yes, look, it's been great being on here. Thank you very much. Thanks for chatting. Thanks for putting up with the glitches and all that. And yes, it's thank you very much. Thanks for sharing what we do. It's
Yeah.
great.
Well, I'm always glad to share things I like, which is why I started this whole YouTube thing in the first place.
Yes,
So,
that's awesome. Yes.
thank you, Mr. Edney. Thank you all for
Yep.
watching. I have been Zero Sum. This has been Drew Edney of Slave2Gaming with Maschinen Krieger 15mm, among many, many other awesome things. We will see you next time. Adios.
All primary objectives complete. Mission successful.